So let me just start introducing Jiten, and I'll hand him over. Jiten is the founder and CEO of Jupiter, as we all know. It's one of India's first digital banking app that we are co-creating with the community, which is basically you guys and other folks on our groups, on our forums. Jiten's previous venture was around Citrus Pay, a successful online payments company, which was sold to Naspers in 2016, right? And then he went to become the MD of PayU India, and he launched LazyPay, a pay later product that kind of scaled over 1 million customers. So Jiten, just handing over to you as the host of today, and hopefully we'll have a fun night with like a lot of insights from TS and you.
Sure. Thanks, Sahil. And thanks everyone for joining. TS, should I call you Anil or TS? What should I call you?
Well, most of the world calls me TS. So
okay, perfect. So I'll call you TS then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll keep the uniformity. So great. So first of all, really appreciate your time, and I know that how busy the time is going for Monzo and your new role per se. So really appreciate you taking out next 45 minutes with us.
So excited to be here, thanks.
Great. So just to quickly introduce TS to your audience. So TS is very well respected individual in financial services and payments. He brings almost like 25 years of retail banking experience. And as Monzo's new CEO now, he brings his, before that he was with Visa, Standard Chartered, Citigroup, and Capital One. Wow, that's like super experienced TS, I must say. And worked across the globe, which is like US, Singapore, Canada, Japan, and India. And of course, having varied experience, he has launched many products and growth opportunities in the organizations he worked with. So welcome on board, TS again. So let's start. Let's start grilling you. You ready for that?
All in, dude.
Great.
Let's do this.
So great. So TS, tell me one thing. Like after looking at your experience, seems like you come from a traditional banking experience, which the new age digital banks are looking to disrupt. And so how did you end up at Monzo?
It's interesting. So you described it as traditional banking. None of the places I worked at the time I worked there would have described themselves as traditional banking, and they all thought they were sort of at the edge of it at the time. So yeah, look, Jiten, so even though I'd worked with many large banks, I actually had a very diverse set of experiences even in banking. So my early Citibank years in India, really at the time, last mile execution mattered more than anything else. Ideas were cheap. Could you actually get something done given the infrastructure that we had, right? So last mile execution was everything. At Capital One in the US, where I moved to after that, it was all about the analytics, right? We would be deep in like excruciatingly massive spreadsheets, and deep analytics powered enormous amounts of value creation. Right, so ostensibly in the same banking industry, but completely different experience and business model and what we were solving for. And then my later years at Standard Chartered, right, same thing, very, very different in terms of what it felt like and what we did. So even within the same industry, very different experiences. And within the same institution, so working with Citibank in India or in Singapore or in Japan, where we lived for 2 years, wildly different. Right, so I think I was incredibly fortunate and blessed to get different kinds of banking experiences living and working in different parts of the world. And then there was Visa, right? One of the largest companies in the world, Fortune 7 or 8 or whatever it is right now, more scale and a bigger canvas than anybody can hope for. So I'd enjoyed that ride, but after that amazing fortune of being in these big companies, I had retained this deep itch to go work in a startup. That it really felt like the zeitgeist of our times. And I knew that I would have crazy FOMO if I didn't actually get that experience. So that's the backdrop to it and the honest answer. So in that context, I think Monzo happened really by lucky happenstance, right? Many startups had reached out and people had spoken to and so on. The Monzo thing happened because a VC that I know here in California thought I should meet the team, and it was, just a casual meeting. It was not in the context of working together or anything. And that casual first meeting over coffee ended up getting crazy momentum. So we spoke for, the next 6 months before I, finally said yes. But I loved the team, loved what Monzo had already built. And I knew that the Monzo was an innovative, exciting tech company and a bank, but I really couldn't have imagined what it was like till I actually got here. And, I work now with, some of the smartest, most ambitious, most empathetic, mission-driven people I've ever worked with. Insane levels of problem solving, creativity, and the whole company. So yeah, really excited to be a part of this community.
Interesting. So that's actually interesting to know. So following to that question, did you meet Tom as well while you were sort of considering joining Monzo?
Of course. We spent a lot of time together.
So I'm curious to know what were your interview questions, or what went into knowing each other and what gave you confidence?
So it's crazy. None of that piece felt anything like an interview, right? In those first few conversations when we would meet, right, we started talking about banking. We started talking about the amount of friction and pain customers around the world feel with their banking experiences. And we started talking about, the size of that global opportunity. And through that time, we were basically jamming about the ways to do it. Right. And it never felt like interviews. And it was just a series of, long and deep jamming sessions over months. And not just with, with the founding team, right? It was really with people across the organization, with, junior engineers and people that are on the board, the investors in Monzo. So it was just a long process of brainstorming, ideating, jamming, and so it produced an outcome at the end on both sides where we both felt like, this is great, we could make this work. And along the way, obviously a big part of it, from my perspective, and certainly as it turned out from theirs as well, was, look, can I connect with this team, right? Are we compatible? Right. Is there a sense of values that we share? Is there a way that, working together will be a joy? And, that just emerged as we went. And, every interaction, I left feeling like, man, I learned something new today. Right? There wasn't a single conversation with anybody in the organization that I left without that feeling that, gosh, I learned. And, and I like these people. So not really an interview. And I wish I could give you a sense of interview question, the opposite of that.
No, very, very interesting. And to be honest, this is like very, very important to sort of connect with the team which you're going to work with. I mean, it doesn't matter what end result would be, but at least you would want to enjoy the journey. You would want to sort of hang out with the people you're working with, rather than sort of work in a boring organization. So clearly that is the thing. So fast forward, and it's been a long path you have come, right? From joining Monzo in US to becoming the CEO. I'm very curious. Monzo being scaled to such a level and being loved by so many users, like how does your week look like as a CEO? Or how does your day look like? Actually, I'm very curious to know.
So, I will describe my day, and you have to give it the COVID handicap because we're all living in this strange and surreal world right now. So the days look even stranger. So my days are crazy and my week is crazy, right? I work for a company that is at the same time a scrappy tech startup and is also a fully regulated bank. So it's a real busy sort of roller coaster. So at a personal level, I'm splitting my time between California, where home is right now, and London. And so the hours that I work, rather than timings, actually vary significantly, whether I'm in the US or in the UK. So So I'm in California this week. So as you can see, it's dark outside. It's 6 a.m. over here, but I've been at work for, more than a couple of hours already. And it's I spend my whole day on video when I'm here with the team in London. And at some level, it doesn't feel like I'm in California and they're in London, because everybody's working remote right now. So I could be anywhere. And the days are packed with meetings with all parts of Monzo, right? Product, finance, regulatory stuff, and so on. And equally packed with external meetings with the regulators, with our investors, with other people that we're looking to do business with. So yeah, I feel like I get into this zone of powering through whatever 12, 15 hours, and it's wildly exciting. It's a ride. It's a roller coaster. And you have to compartmentalize your day. You go from one thing. So I'll go from chatting with you, which is so much fun, to the next thing, which will be like dealing with some COVID crisis, to something else about a product that we're about to launch. And so it's the circus. You know the drill.
So let's jump into the product at Monzo. So, I remember Monzo had launched the subscription card almost like 2 years back or something, and somehow it did not take off. And after you joined, they relaunched Monzo Plus. So like what were the things went into the consideration of relaunch, and why you were so confident that the relaunch would work? What were the learnings from the previous failure?
Sure. So look, we've done a couple of betas before this, right? The relaunch basically meant that we went back to basics, right? And re-examined how we built things as Monzo, right? We thought really hard about why people love Monzo, and we listened to our customers and the community, right? I can chat endlessly about the community of users that we have. And over again, what we learned from our customers was that people love Monzo because it gives them control and it gives them visibility over their money. So we doubled down on that, right? Bear in mind that we were also launching this in the middle of COVID. So many of the other things that might have been relevant in a non-COVID time just didn't feel like the right time, when we were launching this. So we focused on creating a premium product that we believed at the core of it makes Monzo even better at managing your money. So we refocused on benefits that help customers today and will be relevant in the future. Connected accounts with a bunch of banks and credit cards, right. Virtual cards so that you can spend more securely online, advanced budgeting tools like custom categories. Custom categories was one of the number one requested feature of our community. So we listened to our community and built it out. And what we learned along the way is really the truth that customer trust is really, really precious, and you have to work to earn it every day. And when you do earn that, customers are willing to listen to you and buy other products from you. So with Monzo Plus, it's outperformed our expectations in terms of signups.
Interesting.
Right? Whatever pro forma numbers we had, it's way, way, way beyond anything that we had expected. And it continues to grow. And we don't have to spend marketing to do it because the customer relationship is already deep enough.
And if I may ask you a question, and you may choose not to answer if you're not comfortable, like at what level you would want to see ideally the adoption of Monzo Plus from let's say if you have 3 million users, what number of users you would say you're happy with the ideally that should be the target?
So I'm very comfortable answering it, but I choose not to.
So I'm sure that there must be some ideal goals, right?
Sure. I mean, look, at the end of it, without talking numbers, ultimately what we're solving for is continuing to create enhanced capabilities and enhanced services and products and features that we think add real value to customers. And if they do that, customers are then willing to pay for those features and values. And so, we would obviously like, a large percentage of our customers paying us for the product. And so without setting a real goal on it, the real question is, look, what can we do that adds real value that customers feel excited paying for? That's the heart of it. So.
Sure. So, other than Monzo Plus, for Monzo, do you think other ways of monetizing? Because this is the one big problem which has been talked about by journalists and all the press and analyst community that the neobanks don't know how to monetize. And so far seems like in 26, you guys, and to some extent Revolut, have proved that subscription is the way. But other than subscription, nothing else has been sort of being very, very clear. So you see any other way of monetizing?
For sure. Look, we are a fully regulated full service bank, right? So from my perspective, it is really important that we have, therefore, a blend of, well diversified sort of revenues. So the one that you talked about, which is subscription and fee income, right? Fee income coming from services that customers are willing to pay for, right? So which I call good fees, right? Not the bad fees, right? Where you're sort of making money when a customer makes a mistake, right? So the good fees is a big part of it, but it's not even the majority of it, right? I think ultimately the blend looks across three sort of buckets: transaction revenues,
Right.
lending and balance sheet based revenues, and good fees. And that's the business that we're looking to build. And neobanks, we sort of put them all in a single category, and really it is a pretty diverse category of people, that some that are focused on one narrow piece of the customer's needs and the customer's wallet, and there are others like us who are sort of focused across the customer wallet. So the way I think about it, the customer has many financial needs. We're here to help them solve those problems. And as we solve those problems, there will be a diversity of revenue streams as well. So I'm not betting the house on the one thing that will, that is a silver bullet.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so actually, to be frank, this is a question even my investors have been asking me, and I'm sort of picking cues from you, just like how I can answer to my investors. And I answer them, to be frank, very simply that I'm not going to do any rocket science monetization. The monetization would be same as other banks, but it is just that how do you monetize your customers? How do you sort of not become spammy to them and become more contextual? I think that is the key.
Yeah.
But new revenue stream, I don't know about new revenue stream per se.
Sure, and I agree with you, Jiten. I mean, this is a topic because it is a difficult topic, right? It's in the sense that it's easy to build great experiences, but how do you build? But to build them sustainably and scalably, and to be around for the long term, you have to solve for profitability, and you have to solve for being, capital accretive and all of that fun stuff. And so it's not a trivial problem, right? If it was an easy problem to solve, the entire incumbent banking industry would have been replaced by neobanks a decade ago, right? The fact that it hasn't yet makes it a difficult problem to solve. And I think, I don't know about you, I love difficult problems because I think, it means you bring to bear, more skills of the team, right? In solving across that stuff. So ultimately my view on monetization is that the real sustainable monetization will be built on this sort of bedrock of earning and keeping customer trust and solving real problems for them. So like for us at Monzo, that monetization journey, it has to absolutely be aligned with our mission of making money work for everyone. Right? When we start departing from that, it's easy to see the ways in which we lose who we are, not just for ourselves and for our investors, but crucially for our customers. We stop being Monzo. Right? So one of the things that's part of our, it's been part of our vision forever is this idea of a control center, right? The one place where customers go to solve all of their financial needs. And, it's a vision or a mission that's been out there. Different banks talk about it in their own respective words. It's been out there forever, but it's not just about putting up a storefront. As hard as that problem is, it's actually the easiest bit. The hard bit is getting customers to trust you, right? The hard bit is getting customers to trust you enough to look at what you're making available for them and creating the experience that makes it super transparent and easy for them. So, monetization sounds like, look, just throw this product at the wall, and if it sticks, it'll make money. If it drops, it won't. But it's a harder problem, but that's what makes it fun.
So on that note, I'll ask you a related question. So it is generally being said that for any bank to make money, the customers have to make the account primary account. And for neobanks, what has been said or observed throughout the world is that a new bank is an exception maybe, but other than new bank, people have been saying that they are still not comfortable making neobanks as their primary account. They use it as a spending account. And if you use it as a spending account, that means your profitability chances go down or trim down per se. So what is your take on it? Do you at Monzo really chase customers to be making that as a primary account, and then only it becomes a sustainable proposition, or you're comfortable otherwise as well?
So look, I'll say a couple of things, right? So we currently have, 4.6 million customers, and the majority of them are weekly active, right? So suggesting that a large number of our customers do use us as a main account, and we also track what we call the salaried accounts, right? And the data for us continues to sort of give us the tailwind on this, because more and more customers are doing that, right? When we remain one of the top banks in the UK for customers to switch their account to. So that's a metric that is tracked in the industry. Yeah. And we remain the bank that most customers switch to. And for every customer that leaves Monzo, 18 switch their main account to us. So we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Interesting. Yeah.
But ultimately, primary account, in my view, is useful not just because of the deposits that come in, right? God knows in this interest rate environment, deposits in and of themselves are not where you monetize. But that primary account idea is important. Back to my, I'm going to say this a couple of times in this call, I'm sure, right? The idea of trust, because it means you've earned the trust. And if you've earned the trust, then you've earned the ability to learn more about customers, so you can make the right tools available to them, which if they love those tools, they're happy to pay for. So that's the sort of logic stream over here, right? It's not because they'll get more deposits in and of itself. That, from a purely rational banking perspective, that's not where the sort of monetization is. Now, of course, understandably, there's going to be segments of customers that have relationships with other banks that take time to move, right? And that's fine too, right? Because they start using Monzo, and it's a journey for them to put Monzo at the center of their financial life. And, through that time, we need to build enough trust and show value that the effort to switch is worth it. Right? So we try and stay true to that idea of making sure we're providing value, making sure we're incredibly transparent. Every element of the customer experience is so good that we see that paying off, right? So when all the numbers that I talked about, right, even old cohorts continue to grow in terms of activation and moving, primary relationship to us, so to speak. And, that's exciting.
Yeah. So I was in London before I started Jupiter. And the reason I spent a couple of weeks in London, because I sort of wanted to see how people adopt these neobank offerings. So I met customers of Monzo, Revolut, I think Starling maybe, but Monzo and Revolut mainly. And one thing which came out very evident, that people who were using Monzo, they just loved Monzo. So, I asked them, what do you love about Monzo? And they could not articulate it. And they just say, hey man, you won't understand. I just love it. So now since I have the man in front, I'm going to ask you, what is the secret sauce why people love Monzo?
It's interesting. I was going to ask you what our customers said, and you answered that. And it's a hard question for me to answer, and for anyone frankly at Monzo to answer. And it's a hard question for our customers to answer, right? Because I could talk endlessly about the many, many, many things we do across the customer's journey with us, which blow their minds, right? Features and services that we have that give you control, visibility, the ability to do things in the app. Right? So all of those things are true. Right? And I wish there was the one thing that felt like, okay, that's what we do. The onboarding is terrific, and that's why people love us. Or, the POTS feature that we have is the reason they love us. But it's really a broad slew of things. And we've also built this really strong community of users. Right? This is a community that feel engaged with the product and with Monzo. And we have built Monzo together with their feedback and insight right from the beginning. right? In the blurb that you'd put out about Monzo, for this webinar itself, you talked about our community fundraising, and so I'm happy to talk about that, right? But people
Right.
feel vested in us, and that's how we built this over time. Our customer service experience, right? We got ranked best bank in Great Britain for overall service, right? And these are things which are worth being proud of, because we built it from scratch, and we're an incredibly young bank, and we're up against uh, not just other fintech players and other people in the in the tech industry, but also all of the banks that have been around for decades and tried to get it right. Right. So all of those things add up. But honestly, Jiten, if you ask me the secret sauce question and why people love us, as much as it is about each of those touch points and features and so on, I think our secret sauce is actually something deeper than that. If you ask me, I think the secret sauce is, I'd say, the fact that our mission, right, has really been about making money work for everyone, and that comes through in every which way we do business, right? And as long as we never lose sight of that, I feel pretty good about our ability to keep building on those successes. And the secret sauce is just that, right? It's the DNA of a company. And it's
Right.
super hard to try and create DNA, right? You can't just say that we're going to be a mission focused company, right? And we're going to solve real world problems that customers face. So just saying it is not enough.
Right.
And the fact is, but walking that talk every single day in decisions we make, people we hire, products we launch, how we communicate, how do we train our people, how do we notify people of a change in terms if there's a change in pricing, like every single one of those touch points, doing that consistently is incredibly hard. So you can't just will it into existence. And if there's a secret sauce, I think that's it.
On a lighter note, someone told me the secret sauce is color of the card. So, so I'm like, wow, the
By the way,
color of the.
there's enough people that will tell you that it's the color of the card that attracts them, and they love flashing it. They love the idea of
Right.
putting it out there and saying, look here. And even now, when they're 4.5 million customers, it's not a sort of narrow niche cult thing anymore. Even then, people just love it.
Yeah. And on a serious note, frankly, the NPS of 85, right? Monzo has NPS of 85. The NPS of 85 is unheard of. Only I think the Neobank has 88. In India, I was looking at all the banks. None of the banks' NPS stretches beyond 40. So I think this is like commendable. Like I keep getting impressed. Try dissecting how these people are able to maintain NPS of 85. So one-on-one, maybe I'm gonna reach out someday to you to sort of take few tips personally. But
Sure.
commendable there for sure. So I want to ask a tough question, and by the way, this question was not part of the list I sent you. So it's an impromptu question. So
Surprise me.
so you would be surprised. So when the last 4 or 5 months have been roller coaster for all the neobanks and specifically for Monzo. And there have been this news which I've been reading sitting in this part of the world that uh, that there have been layoffs, there have been things around lending not working, whatever way, and then there is this people were like saying that maybe they could not scale to a level at which they should had, and and you joined at that time as a CEO. So I keep thinking, if I were CEO, I don't know how would I handle that situation. And so I'm very, very curious, like how are you able to handle that kind of pressure, and 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 like what goes in your thinking, that how would you change the path, or forget changing the path. I think I would say making the bank stronger from where it is today. Like how would you do that? I mean, this is a very, very tough journey you have been now.
Yeah, so there's lots of questions in that, right? Let me pass them a little bit. So the first piece about challenging times and so on. Look, the reality is there isn't a company that I admire anywhere in the world that has not been through a crazy, difficult, maybe even existential time, right? The largest company in the world, the little $2 trillion company that we all know of, right? Not just in our lifetimes, but in the last couple of decades, nearly went bankrupt,
Right.
right? So I think every company that I admire has been through trials of fire, has been through existential moments, and has been through, um, a crazy rocky phase at some point or the other. So that's my first thing, right? That once you accept that at some point in the journey it's going to happen, and this is our time, so be it, right? Then I think the real question is, uh, it starts to become about sort of breaking it down, right? If you think of, so it's easy to sort of think about all of the challenges and get overwhelmed by it, but then you break it down and say, look, let's break it down into solvable parts, and each part is an incredibly hard problem. So it's not as though breaking it down simplifies each of the separate problems, but I think it puts you in the mode of getting shit done, right? It puts you in the mode of saying, okay, so that problem, let's tackle it, let's figure out how we actually solve that, right? Launching a product, getting the team and the talent right, fixing, making sure we have, the right amount of capital. Each of these problems is difficult, but I think they're closed-ended problems once you break it down. And then I think really there's no substitute for just getting on with it. And, if you're blessed to be doing it with people you enjoy being with, then, it's fun. And, it may not always be type 1 fun, but it's at least type 2 fun, the type 1, type 2 thing, right? So type 2 fun is, which, in the moment is really hard, but when you look back at it, it's fun. So if you're having fun along that journey, it's terrific. And I think that's where I'm at. So of course it's, in the time of COVID, businesses around the world are stressed and challenged, right? We have our version, and, we will get through it. And we'll get through it. And on the other side, we will continue to power towards the business we want to build, the mission we're going after. And it's exciting to be a part of that ride.
But does this whole valuation markdown thing bothers you?
No, look, I mean, it's obviously a number that, everyone fixates on, and rightly for some people, that's everything. But, it's the equivalent of if you were running a public company and, if stock market ups and downs freaked you out, then you shouldn't be doing that job, right? So yeah, I mean, so the valuation drops, down rounds bother me much less than, when I look at it in the context of the fact that, I have investors putting in real money, right, and expressing that faith. I have customers that have continued to sign up every single day without us spending a single penny on marketing, right? So we don't spend anything to acquire customers, and still every single day, every single month, we continue to grow that. So when you have the faith of customers, when you have the faith of, your shareholders, then you just get on and do it. And of course, valuation will matter, and, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I must say that I keep reading this, that Monzo is adding organically more new customers per week as compared to any other closest competition. So that clearly shows that the market is, or the outside world is going to value the company right sooner or later. So I think this number, in my view, is also trivial for the moment. Well, yes,
And
it's
it
sort
just
of
means there's more upside to be created, no, Jiten?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, it's a great way of looking at things. So, okay, let's switch gears. So, coincidentally on the audience, there are many bankers as well as founders like me who are building neobanks. So, what would be your advice to people like us? Like how, and we are at the start of the journey, so lot to learn. But what would you advise, that how should we go about building a neobank, and which is sort of so loved, so raved about? And what are the things to be taken care of, since all of us are in early part of the journey?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I wish there was some way to bottle it up. But in the Monzo journey, we realized pretty early that the current way of banking was broken and that we could do it better, right? And that began a journey of really listening to customers, getting feedback, and building a product that we hoped they would love based on that. Right. And that thing has never gone away for us. And every tech company and increasingly big incumbent companies talk about mission. Our mission has always been to make money work for everyone, and we've never lost sight of that. So I think if I was to give you one piece of advice, I would say don't lose sight of what you're trying to do and why you set out to do it in the first place. Because you need a true north, when you're lost in the minutiae of P&Ls and the daily crisis and all of the other stuff. It's kind of easy to lose sight of that.
Interesting.
And so I'd say, hold yourself to that, because it'll be, not just in a warm, fuzzy sort of way, but because it will help you make choices. It'll help you make decisions. It'll help you figure out where to steer the company as you go. And then, we could talk at length about, the different pieces of the stack that you need to get right. And,
right.
So people focus on the app, right? Because it's the sort of front end, is the most visible manifestation of the bank. And of course, that is crazy important, because that's the experience that customers are seeing. But there's a bunch of other ingredients to get right. Building a brand that inspires trust and love is a journey, right? And all the best brands will tell you their stories of how hard it is to build and how even harder it is to keep that, right? And so you have to build that, which comes from having a consistent customer voice, standing for something that customers can believe in, and so on. The tech stack, right, which allows you to iterate and build, and crucially to scale, crazy important, right? If this is ultimately it's a tech-powered business model, so how you get that right is important. How do you think about product and design, and how you build a team that focuses on that? Crazy important. So, all of these pieces of the stack have their own stories about what's easy, what's difficult, and how do you actually get to where you want to be on it. And ultimately, in our case, we also chose to be a fully regulated bank as opposed to just a fintech player. And that's a choice. And when you're a fully regulated bank, it gives customers a different level of comfort and trust with them. And with that come additional parts of the stack, right? Because then there's
regulatory compliance,
regulatory compliance, controls, risk management, all of those pieces. So, like any full stack thing, you have to sort of get it right across all levels to build really a business that you can be proud of, and that customers will love, and investors will feed, and and I've left out the monetization conversation part of this just because we already talked about that, right? You have to have a view on saying, look, how will this whole thing add up into sustainable profitability? So there's a lot to get right, but I just go back to what I said at the beginning, which is, don't forget why you started this in the first place.
So on that note, can I ask you a question that in early days, what kind of metrics one should focus on?
It depends on how early you're talking about, right? But ultimately,
just starting. Just assume just starting, and first 6 months and 12 months.
I mean, first 6 months as you're building product, I would focus on, do your customers' eyes light up, right, when they see a feature? Right? Do your eyes light up? Do you get excited when you're describing that experience, right? Because that's what you're doing in the early stages, right? You're trying to build a product that you think will cut through the clutter.
Right.
So there's lots of KPIs and metrics and numbers you can put against what I just said, but fundamentally that's what you're trying to do, right? Do people light up when they think about and play with your product? I think so. Beyond that, and sort of other more other stuff that translates across the tech industry, across different kinds of startups, I think the piece of advice that I would give you that is not that's less sexy to talk about is really think hard about capital, because the business of neobanking, like any kind of banking, is that it needs the right amount of capital to get to fund the burn, but also to fund the balance sheet and to create the escape velocity that any sort of bank needs. So really think about that so that you're not in reactive mode on capital. So that you're ahead of that story, and you put enough gas in the tank to really be able to build it out. Right? Just-in-time
Got it.
capital is painful in any industry. It's
Right.
existential.
No, that's a very, very helpful advice, Anil. So, Anil, since we have some more time, I would ask a few rapid fire questions, and we do ask this each of our panelists who joins me, and this is like more to know you personally and about like how you look at things. So you don't have to think more about these questions. Whatever first thing comes to your mind.
Go for it.
So, yeah, so there are 5 or 6 questions, not more. So, which is your favorite startup other than Monzo?
Gosh, we're living in such a crazy time of innovation. There's so many. I'll go with Flux. Flux is this startup which gives you digital receipts for goods, and it comes straight into your banking app. And the best part is we've actually partnered with Flux.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Actually, coincidentally, I was reading about this company day before. And I also was pretty intrigued with the company. Okay. What are the 3 big milestones that Monzo look forward to now?
So there's a bunch of near-term stuff. There's some more exciting products that we have in the hopper, and so getting it out there will be great. So there's a bunch of shipping product stuff that's out there. There is a bunch of things around scaling what we already have. So I mentioned we talked about Monzo Plus already. So we have exciting big number milestones that are coming up on those that we will celebrate. We launched business banking 6 months ago, right? It was our first entry into that segment, and that's going gangbusters. And so clearly in that there are sort of milestones of how many customers we will hit on that. So there's a bunch of business and product milestones. For me, the other milestones that matter are we talked about our high net promoter score. So it's crazy that's a number that the milestone on that is just holding on to it, right? Every time you win it, it's an amazing thing. So it's not a when do we hit the higher number or whatever, just holding on to it, and every month that we track it, that adds up is amazing. So there's a whole bunch of milestones across the spectrum like that, across engagement, revenue numbers that we're hoping to hit. We're, as they say in the industry, pre-profit. So the profitability milestone is a big one. So lots of big things out
there. And you, in your bio, I read that you've worked in so many countries, lived in quite a few countries. So which one is your favorite country and why? And let me add the question more. So if you have to retire, which country you will retire into?
Okay, different answers. The favorite country, sort of top of my mind, will always be Japan. We lived and worked in Japan for 2 years, and it was just this crazy experience at so many different levels, right? So it's a deep cultural experience, the sights, tastes of Japan, but also the daily living in a country like that, experiencing the ethos of being in Japan. So it's a soul experience in lots of different ways. So that would probably be my favorite country. Where would I retire is a much harder question for us to answer. My wife and I talk about it all the time. And the closest version of it that we've been able to come up with is that, when you live and grow up in different parts of the world, lots of different places feel like home, but no place is exclusively home. So I think if I was to forward this clock and think about retirement, there would not be a single place. There would be some place in the West, either California or London, and definitely some place in the East as well. So India has remained home for me. I've traveled as often as we can to India.
Interesting. IPO versus private.
Oh, we're just getting started then. Long way to go. No plans to sell. I mean, goal is to just build this out at global scale. And not even thinking yet.
And since you joined Monzo much late, but now since you have sort of view on or visibility on most of the things which exist today as well as coming in future. So which is the most favorite feature of Monzo you personally like?
So let me go with a feature that I personally like a ton, even though it's not a feature that I can ever use, right? Is the feature for business banking, where we have this idea of tax pots, where, you know, you know, a business's sales come in, a portion gets set aside to pay
Right.
taxes, right? With just a simple idea, we
Yeah.
had pots for retail customers, but the power of taking that feature into the business banking world is amazing, right? And our business banking customers love it. So, you know, it's not a feature I use because I don't, you know, I'm not running a small business, but that
Right.
does feel like that sometimes. But yeah, I'd go with that.
Oh, no, I think it's a pretty innovative thinking actually. I never thought in that direction. That the tax pots
We can give
and
away all our secrets.
yeah, people see this liquidity challenge at the time of paying taxes. So wow, this is like pretty interesting way of thinking.
I told you, you're charming me into giving away all my secrets.
So okay, the last question. So what would you advise to 20-year-old TS?
Gosh, I think that 20-year-old me was probably intuitively wiser than this version of me. Um, but if I had to advise him something, I would just remind him, you know, it's the journey, dude. There's no destination on this thing. It really is the journey.
Interesting.
Although, by the way, I suspect that the 20-year-old me would have enough gyan to give this version of me as well.
And I'm sure maybe if you were 20-year-old this time, you would go and work in a startup first rather than a
100%.
big company. Yeah. Okay.
100%. Although I have to say, you know, you get amazing experiences in big companies. You learn different things. You learn how to operate at
Right.
scale. So, I mean, the ideal version for me is you do both, and it doesn't matter as much which sequence you do it in. But I
Yeah.
do think I would do both.
Yeah, but the second sequence becomes harder actually. Once you've
That's
worked with a startup, you can't work with a big company.
that's kind of why I said actually, that, you know, I feel like you should do both because they teach you different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So we are done with the questions and grilling session, and TS. It was like really pleasure. So if you allow, we want to take a couple of questions from our community team. By the way, just to give you some perspective. So we like I'm personally inspired by Monzo whole community concept, and that's why I said that when I was spending my time in London, understanding before starting that what went in building Monzo. I think this community thing clearly came out as a differentiator. So we took similar approach in India, where we built community for Jupyter users. We have now a pretty vibrant and engaging community who are suggesting us features, this, that, what they like, what they don't like, cribbing about existing bank features and all of that. So I think so these sessions specifically are organized for those communities. So if you are okay, I would take like two questions. So Sahil, you're on the call, right? So can we take two questions from what we have received from community?
Yeah, so I think I've noted down the questions, and one or two questions kind of builds on what TS already said, right? So the first question would be that like Monzo had solved for like simple onboarding. Then they kind of instant notifications is one of the most loved features that I could gather from the reading the community, right? So these are like small pain points and build for like bill spots and normal pots that you kind of talked about, right? So you also mentioned that there are certain products in pipeline. So Dhruv had a question that what are the three new things that basically Monzo is working on to maintain that edge over other banks?
Not telling you, Dhruv. It's bad enough you make me give away all our secret sauce kind of questions. No,
Yeah, man.
I'm kidding. Look, without sort of getting into specific products that are coming up and so on, I think the my points, you know, it sounds like super sort of motherhood and apple pie, high level sort of gyan to say that, look, focus on the direction you're in on the mission. But I do mean that, right? Because it's easy to see after that what would come next, right? Because we are focused on trying to make money work for everyone, which means making tools available to customers to help manage their money better and better. So even without talking about sort of big sort of blockbuster kind of products, right? Just that's the journey. So along that path, it's easy to see, what that looks like, building out a marketplace, building out, more, giving customers more tools to manage, their personal financial lives, which is not just about products, but also about other services, like insurance. There's a whole bunch of things over there, but I think getting the direction right is the important one.
Got it. So I think second question is another like question. Not sure if you'll answer again, but let me ask it anyways. Community to know. So the question is, it's
I'm
around
answering, I'm answering everything as candidly as I can.
Yeah, I must say. Yeah.
So it's around
Yes,
crowdfunding though, right? The question is, it's a new concept in India, right? And nobody has done it. There are some legal hurdles and stuff, right? People were asking like, how does it work? And why would you not raise from your users in the last round? And you went ahead with, actually Monzo went ahead and raised institutional money. What was the rationale of going via an institutional round versus the raising from the community itself?
Sure. Look, just a couple of things. We were raising in the middle of COVID, right? It didn't, so it just felt like it was more complicated to try and ask users, get involved users in a fundraising round at the time. So, and there was enough institutional interest, venture capital interest, or existing investors wanted to put in more. So it just felt like the right thing to do. The community has played a huge role in our, in making us who we are right now. Not just from a funding perspective, right? The funding in terms of percentages is not what's fueled us, but the funding raises have been amazing, right? We've done 3 community crowdfunding rounds, and each of those crowdfunding rounds was intense, right? In 2016, we raised £1 million in 96 seconds, right? Yeah. In 2017, we aimed for £2.5 million, but more than 12 million was pledged, right? In 2018, we had December 2018, we had a biggest round, right? And there were 36,000 customers who invested £20 million in 2 days, 2 hours and 45 minutes, right? So it's an attractive thing. The intent of it was less about raising capital in and of itself and more giving the community a chance to participate with us. And this time, look, there was it was a tough environment. We just didn't want to go there yet.
Yeah, fair enough. Otherwise, I would have invested for sure.
So thanks, Sahil. I think we need to wrap up the session. So Anil, I want to formally thank you. And, I think the words are short considering your busy schedule. And I think I really pestered you for this session. So want to thank you enough to agree to come for this session. And as I said that, personally, I'm gonna reach out to you whenever there is a right time for you to sort of take more tips at length. But thanks to you and my community team definitely is grateful to you.
No, it's been a privilege to be asked to come and speak to the group over here. So thank you for that, and look forward to being in touch with you.
Yeah, thanks, TS. Bye.
See you.